Yo, welcome back to another video, man. Before we say or do anything else, all praise to the Most High. You know what I'm saying? As always. Today we got every boxer with an insane backstory explained in 16 minutes. Before we get into it again, one more time. Hey, look, I got some food. Like I told y'all, every time y'all see me, I'm always gonna be eating something. I don't give a damn what it is. And I got some more. Damn, you can't even see these, but that. You feel me? Let's go ahead and get into it though.
Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's story is one of the most brutal rises in sports history. He was born June 30th, 1966, in Brooklyn, New York, and from the start, life was stacked against him. His father abandoned the family when Mike was just 2 years old, leaving his mother Lorna to raise him and his siblings in Brownsville, one of the poorest and most dangerous neighborhoods in New York City. As a little kid, Tyson was painfully shy and soft-spoken, but the world around him was anything but soft. By the time he was 7, he was being bullied constantly for his lisp and short stature. He later said he was picked on so badly that one day a bigger kid killed his beloved pet pigeon in front of him, and Mike snapped. That was the first time he ever threw hands, and from then on, fighting became his answer to everything. Tyson's home life wasn't any better. His mom struggled with poverty and often neglected him. With no father figure and little structure, Mike was left to run the streets. By the time he was 11, he was already carrying guns and sticking people up. He was arrested for the first time at just 12 years old. Over the next few years, he was arrested nearly 40 times for robberies, assaults, and street fights. He was basically living between juvenile detention centers and the streets. One of the darkest moments of his childhood came when he was sent to the Tryon School for Boys, a juvenile facility upstate. Most kids would have broken down in a place like that, but Tyson found an outlet. A counselor noticed his raw power and introduced him to boxing. That's how he eventually met Cus D'Amato, the man who would become his legal guardian, mentor, and father figure. Cus gave him structure, discipline, and the first real love he had ever known. But even with Cus in his corner, the scars from his childhood never left. Tyson grew up surrounded by violence, poverty, and trauma. His mother died when he was 16, before she ever got to see him fight professionally. Tyson later admitted he never really got over that, and much of his rage in the ring came from that pain. By 20 years old, he became the youngest heavyweight champion in history, but everyone close to him knew that the most dangerous fights Tyson ever had weren't in the ring. They were in his childhood. Terrence Bud Crawford, was born September 28, 1987 in Omaha, Nebraska. From the start, his environment shaped him into a fighter. Omaha isn't known as a boxing hotbed, but Crawford grew up in one of its toughest neighborhoods. Gangs, drugs, and violence were everywhere. As a kid, Crawford had a short fuse. Teachers said he was constantly getting into fights at school, and by the time he was 10, he had already been kicked out of multiple programs. The streets started pulling him in, but his grandmother stepped up and pushed him into a local boxing gym to burn off the anger. That gym, run by Coach Midge Minor, became his second home. Even with boxing in his life, the trouble didn't stop. As a teenager, Crawford still ran the streets. He got into fights, sold drugs, and built a reputation for having a temper that could explode at any moment. He once admitted he would fight anybody, on the sidewalk, in a parking lot, even in the ring during sparring, and wouldn't stop until someone dragged him off. The turning point in Crawford's story came in 2008. He was 20 years old, already a promising amateur, when a simple game of dice nearly ended his life. He was shooting dice outside his grandmother's house when an argument broke out. As he walked back to his car, someone pulled up beside him and fired a gun. The bullet went through the back window and into Crawford's head. He was bleeding out, alone in his car, and drove himself to the hospital. The doctors managed to pull the bullet out, and
Wait, I heard some stories saying that he got grazed, and then some stories saying that he got, really shot in the back of his head. Which one is it? Did he get grazed or did he get hit?
Somehow he survived without permanent damage. That moment changed everything. Crawford later said that lying in the hospital bed with a bullet wound in his head was when he realized he had to take boxing seriously. He doubled down in the gym and never looked back. Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao's life story sounds more like a movie script than reality. He was born December 17, 1978, in the province of Bukidnon in the Philippines. His family was extremely poor. His father struggled to find steady work, and there were days when food was so scarce that Manny would go to bed hungry. When Manny was just 12 years old, he came home one day to find his father had killed and eaten the family's pet dog out of desperation. That moment broke him. Soon after, he left home with nothing but the clothes on his back. He stowed away on a boat boat to Manila, hoping to find work and send money back to his family, but instead, he ended up homeless, living on the street.
You killed the pet dog because you were hungry, son? The dog hungry too? What the fuck? That's alright.
Streets, sleeping in cardboard boxes and hustling any way he could to survive. Fighting was his way out. 14, he started competing in amateur boxing matches, often lying about his age to get in the ring. He weighed barely 98 pounds, so he would sneak rocks into his socks during weigh-ins to pass the minimum weight requirement. He fought for about $2 a match.
So you cheated. I respect it. You gotta do what you gotta do, you feel what I'm saying? But shout out to all these people for not going down the wrong path. Like, you took a terrible situation and made it into something good. Like, for anybody watching this video, bro, if you have a talent or something positive that you can do, figure out a way to make some money from it and chase that, bro. Because 9 times out of 10, say you go down the wrong path or you just try to do something to get some quick money or something like that, it ain't gonna lead nowhere. I'm telling you, it's gonna lead in circles until you get locked up somewhere or you get killed somewhere. If you do something like this and you really dedicate yourself to it and you find a way to make it work, bro, I'm telling you, you gonna end up a millionaire somewhere.
Match, money that he used to buy rice and help his mother feed his sibling. Pacquiao's raw talent was undeniable. By 16, he turned professional, fighting in small shows across the Philippines. He traveled with nothing but one pair of shoes and sometimes had to tape them together just to keep training. He often sent his entire fight purse back home, leaving himself with nothing. Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury was born August the 12th, 1988 in Manchester, England, into an Irish traveler family. He came into the world weighing just 1 pound after being born 3 months premature. Doctors told his parents he had almost no chance of survival, but his father, John Fury, named him Tyson, after the heavyweight legend Mike Tyson, believing his son would fight through it. Against all odds, he did. Growing up wasn't easy. Fury's family lived a rough traveler lifestyle, moving around and scraping by. His father was a bare-knuckle fighter, and Tyson was raised in an environment where fighting was as normal as breathing. He left school at just 11 years old to join his dad and brothers on construction sites, but boxing was always in his blood. By the time he was a teenager, Fury stood over construction sites, but boxing
Yeah, and that looked like a good replica too. Alright.
was always in his blood. By the time he was a teenager, Fury stood over 6 feet 5 inches and was already dominating in the ring. He won the ABA National Championships and quickly built a reputation as Britain's next big heavyweight. In 2008, he turned professional at just 20 years old, and in less than 7 years, he shocked the world by beating Vladimir Klitschko.
You know what's crazy? He looked like he from the UK too. I ain't never
become unified heavyweight champion. But what came next nearly destroyed him. After reaching the top, Fury fell into a spiral of depression, alcoholism, and drug abuse. He later admitted that despite being world champion, he hated himself. He ballooned in weight, reportedly reaching nearly 400 pounds. He drank every day, used cocaine heavily, and contemplated suicide. In 2016, he tested positive for cocaine, vacated his belts, and disappeared from boxing. Many thought his career was over. At his lowest point, Fury has said he once got into his Ferrari, planning to drive it into a bridge and end his life. At the last moment, he pulled over, broke down crying, and realized he needed help. From there, he began a slow, grueling climb back, losing more than 150 pounds, getting clean, and seeking therapy for his mental health struggles. In 2018, after nearly 3 years out of the ring, he returned to face the undefeated knockout artist Deontay Wilder. Most people thought Fury didn't stand a chance, but in one of the most dramatic fights in modern boxing, he not only outboxed Wilder, but survived a thunderous knockdown in the 12th round that looked like it ended the fight. Against all odds, he got up and fought back, earning...
Sorry, I paused it again. Am I the only one that think Deontay Wilder really can't fight worth a damn? He real overrated? Whatever.
A draw. 2 years later, he proved it wasn't a fluke, stopping Wilder in the rematch, then again in their 2021 trilogy to reclaim his place at the top, George Foreman. George Foreman was born January 10th, 1949, in Marshall, Texas. He grew up in absolute poverty. His family lived in the rough 5th Ward of Houston, a neighborhood plagued with crime and violence. Foreman's stepfather was a drinker, money was always short, and George spent most of his childhood hungry and angry. By the time he was a teenager, he was already heading down a dangerous path. He dropped out of school at 15, started running with gangs, and lived much of his life on the streets. He admitted he was constantly in fights, robbing people, and on his way to becoming a statistic. Foreman later said that at 16, he was so desperate and violent that he considered himself thug, plain, and simple. Everything changed when he joined the Job Corps at 16. It was a government program meant to give troubled teens vocational training, and it was there he met a counselor named Doc Broadus, who introduced him to boxing. Broadus told him straight, you can either fight in the streets for nothing or fight in the ring for something. That one piece of advice lit a fire in Foreman. He trained obsessively and rose fast. By 1968, at just 19 years old, he made the U.S. Olympic boxing team and won a gold medal in Mexico City, famously waving an American flag in the ring at the height of racial tension back home. Just 3 years later, he turned professional, knocking out almost everyone in his path. In 1973, Foreman destroyed Joe Frazier to become heavyweight champion of the world. The fight lasted just 2 rounds. Frazier, who had beaten Muhammad Ali, was knocked down 6 times. Suddenly, Foreman was the most feared man in boxing. He was big, he was mean, and his power looked unstoppable. Sonny Liston. Charles Sonny Liston's exact birth date is still unknown. Most historians believe he was born around 1930 in rural Arkansas, one of 25 children to an abusive sharecropper father. His childhood was nothing short of brutal. His father beat him mercilessly, sometimes with a whip or belt, and forced him into endless farm labor instead of school. Liston never learned to read or write properly, and he carried those scars of neglect and abuse for the rest of his life. By the time he was a teenager, Liston had had enough. He ran away from his father's farm and eventually reunited with his mother, who had moved to St. Louis. But the city offered no real escape. He had no education, no money, and no skills. Liston turned to crime. He was arrested multiple times for robbery and assault, and at 20 years old, he was sentenced to prison for armed robbery. It was inside the Missouri State Penitentiary where Liston's life changed. A Catholic
That goes still right there. Persuasion.
priest who oversaw recreation at the prison noticed Liston's massive frame and raw strength and encouraged him to box. Sonny took to it immediately, smashing through opponents with terrifying power. When he was released in 1952, he turned professional almost instantly. In the ring, Liston became a wrecking machine. Standing 6 feet 1 inch with a near 80-inch reach, he was one of the most intimidating heavyweights in history. His jab was like a battering ram, and his punches had knockout power that struck fear into everyone he faced. By 1962, after destroying opponents like Cleveland Williams and Zora Fowley, he finally...
We're gonna get back to this in a second. Hold up.
She gonna call you baby boo. There she go. You funny. She over here talking. She gonna get her.
What's we talking
There's
about?
not one.
Alright, I'm back, man. I'm back. I lost the top to my Pringles, and I'm kind of panicking. Y'all ever lost the top to y'all Pringles?
finally got his shot at Floyd Patterson. Liston knocked Patterson out in the first round, and then did it again in their rematch. He was heavyweight champion of the world and widely seen as unstoppable. But outside the ring, trouble followed him everywhere. He had well-documented ties to organized crime, and his past arrests gave him a reputation the public couldn't shake. He was cast as the villain of boxing, opposite of Muhammad Ali's charismatic rise. In 1964, Ali, then Cassius Clay, shocked the world by beating Liston, forcing him to quit on his stool after the 6th round. Their rematch a year later ended in even more controversy, with Ali knocking him out in the first round with what many still call the Phantom Punch. After that, Liston's career never fully recovered. He kept fighting into the late 1960s, racking up wins, but the aura of invincibility was gone. Then in December 1970, his story ended as mysteriously as it began. Sonny Liston was found dead in his Las Vegas home, his body badly decomposed. The coroner ruled it a heroin overdose, but many close to him insisted he was terrified of needles and suspected foul play. To this day, the circumstances of his death remain a mystery. Muhammad Ali, born Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. on January 17, 1942 in Louisville, Kentucky, grew up in the segregated South. His father was a sign painter, his mother a domestic worker. Money was tight, but what shaped him even more was the racism he saw everywhere around him. Ali would later say he never forgot the sting of being denied service at a restaurant simply because he was black. His path to boxing started in an almost accidental way. At 12 years old, his bike was stolen. Furious, young Cassius told a police officer named Joe Martin that he wanted to whoop whoever did it. Martin happened to run a local boxing gym and told him, well, you better learn to fight first. That chance encounter set him on the road to becoming a legend. Ali was a natural from the start. His speed, reflexes, and charisma stood out even as a teenager. By 1960, at just 18 years old, he represented the United States at the Rome Olympics and won a gold medal in the light heavyweight division. When he came home, though, he was still treated as a second-class citizen. He later claimed that after being denied service at a whites-only restaurant, threw his medal into the Ohio River. Turning professional later that year, Ali rose fast. He shocked the world in 1964 by beating Sonny Liston to become heavyweight champion at just 22 years old. That night, he announced to the world that he was no longer Cassius Clay. He had joined the Nation of Islam and would be known as Muhammad Ali. Jake LaMotta, known as the Raging Bull, was born July 10, 1922 in the Bronx, New York, to Italian immigrant parents. His upbringing was as tough as the streets he grew up on. His father was an abusive alcoholic who forced Jake to fight other neighborhood kids while he collected spare change from spectators. It was a brutal way to make money, but it hardened LaMotta from an early age. LaMotta's youth was filled with crime. He dropped out of school and turned to petty thefts and robberies. At 16, he was arrested and sent to a reformatory. By his late teens, he was heading toward a life of prison until boxing gave him a way out. When he came out of reform school, he threw himself into fighting, channeling his rage and street toughness into the ring. LaMotta was never the fastest or the smoothest boxer, but he was relentless. He developed an iron chin and a pressure style that broke down opponents round by round. He turned pro in 1941, and within a few years, he was making a name for himself as one of the toughest middleweights in the world. His defining rivalry came against Sugar Ray Robinson, widely considered the greatest boxer of all time. LaMotta fought Robinson 6 times between 1942 and 1951. He only won once in 1943, handing Robinson his very first professional loss.
As soon as I won, I'd have never fought that motherfucker again. Nope. Hey, if you ever in a situation, I don't care if you racing, I don't care if you fighting, I don't care if you playing basketball one-on-one, I don't give a damn what you're doing. If you got a competitive sport or whatever the case is, and you cannot beat this person, I can't beat this person for nothing, you always gonna get that one. I'm telling you, all you gotta do is stay consistent, stay stubborn about it. You always gonna get that one. And after you get that win, after you get that one win, you never get this person to rematch. Why am I not on full screen?
But what made LaMotta legendary wasn't just that win. It was his ability to absorb punishment and keep moving forward. In their final bout, the famous 1951 St. Valentine's Day Massacre, LaMotta took a horrifying beating but refused to go down until the referee finally stopped the fight in the 13th round. LaMotta's career was also shadowed by controversy. In 1947, he admitted to intentionally losing a fight against Billy Fox in exchange for a shot at the middleweight title. It was later revealed the mob was heavily involved in boxing at the time, and LaMotta's admission tarnished his reputation. Still, in 1949, he beat Marcel Cerdan to become the middleweight champion of the world. Outside the ring, LaMotta's life was even more chaotic. He was infamous for his violent temper, jealousy, and abusive behavior toward his wives and family. He later openly admitted in interviews and in his autobiography that he had been physically abusive, something that cast a long shadow over his legacy. By the time he retired in 1954, LaMotta had fought 106 professional bouts, with a reputation as one of the toughest fighters ever to step into the ring. His story was immortalized in Martin Scorsese's 1980 film Raging Bull, starring Robert De Niro, which won an Academy Award and cemented LaMotta's place in pop culture history. Jake LaMotta's backstory was one of raw survival, a kid forced to fight for money, who grew into one of boxing's most feared warriors. But it was also a tragic reminder that sometimes the same rage that drives greatness inside the ring can destroy everything outside of it.
Yep. Well, damn, that ended fast. Hey,
Mike Tyson.
Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video, y'all. I'm sorry for the little slip ups. I got a lot going on right now, but I'm trying. I'm still here. I'm being consistent. Like the video so then I can kind of focus on this more and tell everybody else to get out my face. You feel what I'm saying? Feel what I'm saying? Anyway, all praise to the Most High as always. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Stay blessed and eat fruit, man.